Hello all, welcome to New Rockstars. My name is Sam Basher, and this has been an awesome few weeks for superhero fans. Not only did we get a new trailer for Captain Marvel and Avengers Endgame, and not only are we getting the first Miles Morales Spider-Man and Aquaman movies, but we also got another ambitious crossover from the CW Arrowverse, Elseworlds. In this crossover, we saw Arrow, Supergirl, and Flash come together to take on John Deegan and the Monitor and stop a reality-warping, world-ending event. Not only that, but we also saw our first crossover with Superman, Lois Lane, John Wesley Shipp's Flash from the 90s Flash show, and Batwoman, confirming the existence of Batman in the CW universe. I mean, he's been teased, but now it's all 100% we got him, gang. Now, there are even more juicy Easter eggs and hidden references within this crossover that may have slipped by you, so let's not dilly-dally and hop into this breakdown of these 3 episodes. Spoiler warning, of course, for all these shows, all DC shows, movies, comics, and I don't know. Spoiler warning, I like Nutella eaten out of the jar, and I once saw C. Thomas Howell in an elevator at Comic-Con, and he was very nice. Let's get into these Easter eggs. Since most of them are from comic books, we're just gonna go episode by episode, starting with part 1, and this is the Flash's episode. How exciting. We open on Earth 90, the home of John Wesley Shipp's Barry Allen, which is a fun nod to the Flash series that aired in 1990. We also got a bit of his theme at the end of the scene, just for like a little second, and littered throughout this battleground, if you will, are other heroes of note. You see Stargirl, a Firestorm, a Captain or Citizen Cold, you can see a Vixen, you can see the Ray's helmet, at least one of the Hawks, probably Hawkman, and there are a few more, but most importantly, it looks like we can see the Green Arrow from the Smallville universe based on the lime green coloring of his suit. Not the only Smallville nod when we get in these episodes, no siree, Bob. Here we're introduced to the Monitor, the watcher over all of the multiverse, and in the CW multiverse, the keeper of the Book of Destiny. Now, the Book of Destiny could be a nod to the destiny of the Endless, a member of the Endless in DC Comics that carries around a similar book. As for the Monitor, his first appearance was in the New Teen Titans Volume 1, number 21 in July of 1982. He is key during one of the biggest events in DC Comics history, the Crisis on Infinite Earths. More on that later. As for his powers, it's basically limitless. He's never really been tested, and his time in comics was pretty short-lived. We then meet Jeremy Davies, aka Dr. John Deegan, one of our big bads for this crossover. Comic book fans should be more familiar with Dr. Destiny, his supervillain persona. Also, his new look at the end of this crossover is closer to his comic book appearance in the New 52. Dr. Destiny's shtick, if you will, is that he can manipulate people's dreams. At least it's been narrowed down to that as of late. He's actually a star of one of my favorite Justice League episodes from when I was a kid. He's one scary dude, possibly getting his name because of the Book of Destiny that he's using to rewrite all of reality. Probably. Good job, Sam. Moving into the current crisis, you probably noticed the red skies is a big nod to 2 things. One of them being that in most crises in DC Comics, the sky goes red and we get yellow lightning storms. Cool. But also, since we find out that the Flash from Earth 90 is trying to reach out to our boys, could this be a nod to his color scheme? I'm just spitballing here. After Oliver gets his new speed powers, he scoots his way over to Ivo Labs, where he accidentally unleashes the android Amazo, a popular comic book villain for the Justice League that was able to recreate the powers of the Justice League just by looking at him. This boy's a big-time heavy hitter, which I'm very glad we're finally able to see his real robot form, because Dr. Ivo actually made an appearance way back in the flashbacks in season 2 of Arrow, and the name Amazo was actually connected to the ship that Ivo owned to get to Lian Yu. And since the android's powers are Mirakuru-based, like the Deathstroke serum, it all became connected. Does it make sense? Doesn't really matter, because it was awesome. Next, let's give a shout out to them explaining where the prisoners pooped in those science cells at Star Labs. But more importantly, let's get to my first big smile during this crossover, the transition to Smallville on Earth 38 with Save Me by Remy Zero, aka the Smallville theme song, aka the best theme song of all time. Also, that's the same farm from Smallville TV show. Ooh, I'm a happy boy, happy boy. Here we get the first glimpse of our new Lois Lane, who is great, by the way, also wearing a bit of purple like she does in the comics and the Superman animated series. Also, their relationship seems an awful lot like the classic Superman relationship between Lois and Clark, which, don't worry, there are plenty of references to the classic Superman films coming out very shortly. There's also a reference to the jeweled mountains of Krypton on Argo City, which is from the comics, which is just right now a little rock that's just floating out in space. Also, if that drawing that Ollie makes of Deegan and the Watcher looks familiar, that's because it was done by none other than the one and only Jim Lee, a popular DC Comics artist, actually the head of DC Creative right now. Love his art style. And nearing the end of the first episode, we hear a shout out to Wade and Augustin, who are both writers at DC Comics. Mark Waid being the famous writer who gave us some of the best Flash stories, and Brian Augustin working on Gotham by Gaslight, one of the first Elseworlds stories from DC Comics, the first if I'm not mistaken. Also, the final shot of the episode has Batwoman on top of a building in Gotham. Looks a lot like Central City. But also this looks a lot like an homage to the intro to Batman the Animated Series. A bingo. Moving on to part 2, that would be Arrow. Shout out to the new intro with Grant Gustin playing Oliver Queen. And we get a return of Kane Wolfman, aka Ravenger, I believe is the handle he's going by, aka Deathstroke's son. Fun fact, the Kane part of his first name is a reference to Bob Kane, one of the creators of Batman, and Marv Wolfman, the creator of Deathstroke, one of my favorite writers of all time. And it's amazing that Batman is acknowledged at all in this episode, but it's great that Oliver doesn't believe in him, calling him an urban myth concocted by the Gotham City Police to scare criminals. Because I mean, Arrow has to be the original vigilante, of course. Amazing. And like I said, this isn't the first reference to Batman in the CW universe, but still incredible. Also, shout out to Vesper Fairchild, Oliver's contact in Gotham and previous lover. It's actually a Batman character. Batman actually slept with her, and her life in comics was pretty short-lived, but hey, she was there. And we get a fun nod to Christopher Nolan and Tim Burton when you hear the intersections of two streets. CW loves doing that. Corner of Nolan and Burton. Nolan and Burton. Also, it's interesting that we find out that Bruce Wayne and Batman have been missing for 3 years. Batman has been known to go missing in the comics. He even takes breaks occasionally, which he should because his life seems awful. Also, when we walk into Wayne Tower, we see some vines in that plaza. Could this be a nod to Poison Ivy? Possibly. By the way, I know they shot some of these scenes in Chicago, much like the Nolan films. More references to come. And shout out to Batman 66 and the red button hidden under the bust of Shakespeare and the Wi-Fi password being Alfred. Also, it seems like the CW shows can literally show you everything from Batman's history except for Batman. Also, it's so weird that Batwoman and Supergirl are cousins of Batman and Superman. Should that mean that Kara knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne? I can't really get into it right now because there's too many references, but think about it. But back to Earth 90 Flash for a second. This feels an awful lot like that Flash vision from BVS when, you see John Wesley Shipp popping through that little dimensional hole. Now, we're into the Batman Easter eggs like the cold villains in Arkham. Super cool, but let's give a shout out to all the villains we're able to see. Cobblepot O, that is of course the Penguin. Then you have Isley P for Pamela, that's Poison Ivy. See, she came back around. Carlo B or Basil, that's the original Clayface. And you have Nigma E for Edward Nigma, aka the Riddler. And of course, the last most famous, Guggenheim Am, the creator, or one of the creators of the Arrowverse. We also see a glimpse of Psycho Pirate. He plays a somewhat big-ish role in this crossover. Now, Psycho Pirate is a character created by Marv Wolfman who plays a huge role in Crisis on Infinite Earths. We also meet Nora Freeze, wife of Victor Freeze, who looks like she's recovered from her condition from the comics and from Batman the Animated Series. Also, we get a nod to the Nolanverse Bane's mask you can see from The Dark Knight Rises right there on the shelf. Man, what a good get. Also, if you notice in this scene above, you'll see the date 1994 above Nora when she's working on the Freeze gun. A nod to Batman Forever's release date, probably, I think. We then get our first look at Batwoman in action, and she's extremely capable. And in the middle of all this, we even get a reference to Dr. Crane, aka Scarecrow, and his fear toxin infecting both Oliver and Barry and bringing out their own worst fears for each other, Malcolm Merlyn and Reverse Flash. Ooh boy. But to cap off this episode, we get a nod to World's Finest, the comic name for the team up of Batman and Superman, which is amazing. Now it's Supergirl and Batwoman. And on to our next big smile moment for Sam, when John Wesley Shipp finally appears on Earth 1, confirming that he is Barry Allen from the 90s show and that in his world, there is a Green Lantern, John Stewart, and he's played by John Diggle, confirming kinda in a way, in a roundabout way, a fan theory from a few years ago saying that John's middle name is John Stewart Diggle and that he would get a Green Lantern ring eventually. Next, we get confirmation of something even worse on its way, hinting to Crisis on Infinite Earths officially, the big crossover we've been waiting for. But to end this episode, we're introduced to the Trigger twins, Barry and Oliver's new personas, who are twins in DC Comics who become bank robbers. Really, nothing else to say there. And we get to see the black suit Superman. But now on to part 3, Supergirl. We find out that Deegan has rewritten reality and made himself Superman on Earth 1. Shout out to Star Labs finally being a connected piece of the Superman lore. Star Labs actually was originally from the Superman comics, so yay for being his base of evil. And shout out to Gary from Legends of Tomorrow as our bartender at our evil bar. And love seeing Jimmy Olsen as Superman's worst pal, which is a flip on him being his best friend in the comics. So cool. Also worth pointing out that bringing over a Superman from another universe to fight an evil Superman is a page out of Injustice, which I'm not upset about. Injustice is one of the best stories DC has made in forever. But buckle up, kids. Here come your references to the original Superman movie, like the characters running around the world to stop time. doesn't really make sense, but doesn't matter. Also, here's a nod to Crisis on Infinite Earths with Barry running around the Anti-Monitor's weapon and then dying, but he saves the universe, multiverse, you guys get it. Also, we almost lost Kara too, which we originally did in Crisis on Infinite Earths. But back to Superman references, we see Clark sitting down a helicopter safely like he did in the original Superman movie. But the references don't stop there for Superman films. You get a little nod, I think, to Man of Steel with the whole almost neck snapping. Thank God we didn't go through with that. That would have been weird. But moving forward, we see Oliver bargaining with the Monitor, and it feels very reminiscent of other comic book events, but for me, seemed a lot like Tony Stark drunkenly yelling at Odin to allow him to make Uru armor for the Avengers. Pretty cool. But also shout out to Lois's hammer, which could be a nod to Steel's hammer in the comics. But then we officially get a look at Dr. Destiny, and boy, he's gross. Super duper gross. But what's not gross is the acknowledgement that possibly we could be getting a John Kent in the future, aka Superboy from DC Rebirth. I'm a big fan of the character and I hope we maybe get some form of him, but if we don't, I get it, but pretty excited about this. Also, I'm a big fan of Lois and Clark finally getting hitched. We probably won't see that wedding on any of these shows, but if we do, I'll be happy. But again, another big shout out to the classic Superman films with Clark crushing the coal to make a little diamond and Lois's outfit in the Fortress of Solitude. And as we get to the end of this crossover, it seems kind of clear that Oliver must have sacrificed his own life, possibly down the line. We'll have to wait till next year, just like Psycho Pirate's fate, because he doesn't seem like he's doing too well with Dr. Destiny there. You hear him say, worlds will live, worlds will die, and nothing will be the same, which is pulled directly from Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is teased to be coming fall 2019. That's very exciting. Guys, what other references did y'all catch? Where was Nora in this episode? Did John do anything? Is John Wesley Shipp's Flash dead? Cause it seems like it. We'll find out more next year. Let me know which of these references were your favorite and which of those Gotham inmates you'd like to see in a Batwoman series. Boy, howdy, I'm excited for that. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to New Rockstars for more, and follow me at Sam Basher, and I'll see you guys next time.